Every year, millions of people apply for U.S. visas to visit, to study, to work, or to reunite with family. But what most people don't realize is that if you're from certain countries, your chances of getting approved aren't just low, they're almost zero. For these nations, U.S. visa denial isn't the exception, it's the rule. Some of these countries are under heavy sanctions, others are on secret government watch lists, and some are just trapped in bad political relationships where no amount of paperwork can change the answer. Denied. Over and over again. Today, we're breaking down 7 Asian countries that almost never get U.S. visas, and the real reasons why. Stay with me until the end, because the country at number 2 is one of the biggest shocks on this list, and hardly anyone talks about it. Before we get started, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We break down the facts most people aren't willing to cover, and trust me, this is one you need to see. Alright, let's begin. Number 7. Afghanistan. For Afghans, getting a U.S. visa was already difficult, but since the Taliban takeover in 2021, it has become nearly impossible. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul completely shut down during the chaotic withdrawal. Visa processing for Afghans was moved to third countries like Qatar and Pakistan, but even there, approvals are rare. Why? The U.S. government cites security concerns, lack of reliable documentation, and difficulty in background checks. But for many Afghan families, especially those who worked alongside U.S. forces or have American ties, these aren't just bureaucratic delays. They're life-or-death situations. Thousands of Afghans still sit in visa limbo under special programs like the SIV, Special Immigrant Visa, or humanitarian parole, with no clear end in sight. In 2025, unless you're on an active evacuation list or already approved through a rare exception, your chances of getting a U.S. visa from Afghanistan are close to zero. Number 6. Iran. For Iranian nationals, U.S. visa denials aren't just common, they're expected. Why? Because for decades, Iran has been on the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism, which triggers automatic extra screening and restrictions for almost every type of visa. The Trump administration put heavy sanctions on Iran, and while some policies shifted under Biden, many of these restrictions are still in place in 2025. Student visas, work visas, even tourist visas, all face high rejection rates. Even Iranians with full documentation, acceptance letters from U.S. universities, or family invitations often find themselves rejected. The justification? National security risks. Failure to qualify under Section 214B, which means they don't believe you'll return home. And sometimes, no clear reason at all. For most Iranians, the reality is this: unless you're immigrating through a close U.S. citizen relative, the door remains closed. Number 5. Syria. For most Syrians, the idea of getting a U.S. visa is not just difficult, it's nearly impossible. Syria has been trapped in a brutal civil war for over a decade. Millions have been displaced, cities have been leveled. The Assad regime remains in power, and the U.S. continues to list Syria as a state sponsor of terrorism. What does that mean for visa applicants? It means automatic suspicion. Syrians applying for U.S. visas, whether for tourism, education, or family visits, face some of the strictest background checks on earth. The U.S. government often claims it cannot properly verify documents like birth certificates, financial records, or employment histories due to the collapse of government infrastructure inside Syria. But beyond the paperwork, the biggest barrier is fear of overstays and national security risks. Even Syrians with family ties in the U.S. often see their applications delayed for months or denied outright for reasons never fully explained. Unless you're applying through special humanitarian channels like refugee programs, and even those have massive wait lists, your chances of securing a standard visa from Syria in 2025 are almost non-existent. Number 4. North Korea. No country on this list faces a harder block than North Korea, and it has nothing to do with paperwork. North Korea has no U.S. embassy, no consulates, and no formal diplomatic relationship with the United States. That means there's no visa office to even submit an application. If a North Korean citizen wants to apply for a U.S. visa, they have to somehow leave their country first, something the North Korean government almost never allows. And even if they manage to escape and apply from a third country like China or Russia, their chances of getting approved by the U.S. are near zero. Why? Because North Korea isn't just politically isolated. It's viewed by the U.S. as a serious national security threat, with fears of espionage, sabotage, and human rights violations built into every policy decision. It doesn't matter if you're a tourist, a student, or just trying to visit family. The U.S. government assumes every North Korean national could pose a risk, and that makes visa approval almost impossible. In 2025, North Korea remains the single most blocked country on the U.S. immigration map. Number 3, Myanmar, Burma. Since the military coup in Myanmar back in 2021, the country has spiraled into political chaos, with widespread human rights abuses, mass arrests, and armed conflict between the junta and opposition groups. For U.S. immigration authorities, that instability translates into one thing: extreme visa caution. The U.S. government sees Myanmar as unreliable for background checks and documentation verification. Birth records, work histories, even passports are now considered questionable, especially for those coming from rebel-controlled regions or refugee camps. Add to that the fear of asylum fraud. Many from Myanmar claim political persecution, often legitimately, but this has led to a blanket suspicion over new visa applicants. Even if you're not involved in politics, your application is often delayed, questioned, or denied simply because the system assumes the worst. In 2025, unless you're applying through special refugee programs, which have years-long backlogs, getting a regular tourist, student, or work visa from Myanmar is almost a non-starter. Number 2, Vietnam. Vietnam might surprise people on this list because the country has strong economic ties with the U.S. and an active Vietnamese American community. But here's the problem. Vietnam is also one of the top countries for U.S. visa overstays. Thousands of Vietnamese nationals enter the U.S. legally on tourist or student visas and then simply don't leave when their time is up. This long history of overstays has led U.S. immigration officers to approach every new application from Vietnam with deep skepticism. The financial screening is tough. Applicants must prove stable jobs, bank balances, and strong ties to Vietnam that guarantee they'll return home. Even small errors or missing documents can lead to automatic rejection. And complicating things further, there have been past cases of fraudulent visa applications, including fake job offers, false financial statements, and forged school admissions letters. The result? Honest applicants often find themselves stuck in the middle, paying the price for the mistakes of others. If you're from Vietnam and hoping to visit the U.S. in 2025, you're facing one of the highest visa denial rates in the region. And for many, it feels like the system is set up to assume you're guilty before you even apply. Number 1, Cambodia. Topping this list is a country many people don't expect: Cambodia. On paper, Cambodia maintains decent diplomatic ties with the U.S., but when it comes to visas, the reality is very different. Cambodia now faces one of the highest U.S. visa denial rates in all of Asia. Why? Several reasons. A long history of visa overstays by Cambodian nationals, document fraud cases, including fake marriage petitions and false student applications, and most recently, concerns about human trafficking networks operating through Southeast Asia. Because of these issues, U.S. immigration officials are applying what's known as presumed immigrant intent to almost every Cambodian applicant, assuming that if you're applying for a tourist or student visa, you're secretly planning to stay. That means even if your paperwork is perfect, your ties to home are strong, and your purpose is clear, you're still likely to get denied. Embassy interviews often end with no explanation beyond the catch-all phrase, "failure to overcome Section 214B," meaning they don't believe you'll return home. For Cambodian families hoping to visit relatives, attend weddings, or study abroad in the U.S., the process has become a frustrating cycle of application, rejection, repeat. And as of 2025, unless major policy changes happen, Cambodia remains at the top of the U.S. visa blacklist. So what does this list really tell us? For millions of people across Asia, the U.S. immigration system isn't just hard, it's nearly impossible. It doesn't matter how clean your record is, it doesn't matter how honest your intentions are. Sometimes just being from the wrong country puts you at a disadvantage before your application is even read. Because the truth is, these aren't just visa denials. They're political decisions. And in 2025, for the countries on this list, the answer is often the same before you even ask. Number. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these surprised you the most? Do you think this is about safety? Or is it really about politics? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit like, and make sure to subscribe for more videos breaking down what's really happening behind immigration headlines. Thanks for watching, and stay informed.